Welcome everyone to our fifth lecture. After this we will have another five lecture, but this is I think the last most significant lecture because after this we'll be basically talking about some things like thesis feedback form and then plagiarism check, what you should know and how to pass the plagiarism check. Because you know that if you don't pass the plagiarism check, you can't graduate. So that's also important. After that, like the thesis defense, how to make the PPT, and some instructions on how to submit all the things, how to write the sections like introduction, conclusion, abstract, and then literature review. And also I'll share some insights on some online research tools you should use to make your thesis writing part easier and more interesting. But in today's lecture, we'll be talking about certain things which you should take note while writing your thesis. The first thing is starting each chapter on a new page, which some of us make mistakes at the first time, but when maybe later meeting with your supervisor detects the mistake and you need to start the chapters in a new page. What I mean is you can see it in a thesis. Look at this thesis of one student. If you see, it has around five chapters. So each of them is starting in a new page. Chapter 1, and then let's say we see chapter 4. It's starting from a new page, but there's no space anyway. Let's see another chapter, maybe chapter 2. Now you see there is a space. Maybe she could start the chapter directly from here, but she started it from a new page. Now let's say even you have a space still here, you have writing still here, and then this whole thing is empty, but you still leave that gap and then start the chapter from a new page. Um, Maybe another one, chapter 3. Now here you see the gap is bigger, but still she left it and then started the chapter in a new page. So whenever there you are starting a new chapter, start from a new page because each chapter is starting from a new page in the headings. So heading 1 should start from a new page. And the second thing is ensuring there are no blank space between sections or anywhere. Apart from starting a new page, you shouldn't have any other blank space in your thesis. Now, if you look at this thesis, there are no other extra blank spaces. No other extra blank space apart from when we are starting a new chapter. And then third point is confirm the citation and reference style. This is because for each major and for each supervisor, maybe there are different requirements. Now, when you are citing or referencing, if you are from economics, maybe you are using APA style, and then for engineering, you are using IEEE style. So just make sure. Some professors also suggest using the Chinese style, which we discussed earlier in the reference lecture. So you should confirm with your supervisor. And then I think I should show it from this thesis. Here you see like some professors might say that use this kind of a style while citing other papers. You will give the number as well as the writer's name. So this is basically saying that this person is saying that blah 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 blah, and then you give the citation number. So the paper is in 5 in your reference list. You find the bibliography here. So you have to give the writer's name, which is like the citation, and then you have to also give the number and also the bibliography here. So if we see, the number is also here and the writer's name also here, and the bibliography is at the end of the reference list. So one more thing, when you are citing, if you are citing, let's say this line you took from a paper, and it's not just from one paper, maybe two papers, so you should give 6 to 7 and then both of them in bracket. And if it's more than let's say, sometimes your supervisor might say if it's two paper you should 6 and then comma and then 7 in separate bracket. But sometimes you will see if it's more than two, of course you should use 6 to 9 or 6 to 12, like that. So it depends. So that's why I said confirm with your supervisor what style you are using. And then the fourth avoid using websites as reference because it's not good, and it's not professional to use website article as reference because those are not valid. You should use journal article or books or maybe conference paper, report, dissertation, this kind of things. And last, in the previous lecture, I showed like if you are choosing a book or journal or conference, depending on that, the symbol and the reference style also changes. And most of us we like bullet points in anywhere, but in thesis it's less preferable unless you have no other ways. Um, Maybe you try to use bullet points, but it's best not to use bullet points. The best thing is to do maybe you should turn the bullet points in kind of a paragraph, even if it's a small paragraph. And always remember, you shouldn't make the paragraph too small, like 2 lines or 3 lines a paragraph. It doesn't look nice. So at least maybe 4 to 5 lines, one paragraph. So the sixth point, you see, if your project involves programming, so from computer science students, especially when you will have programming, you should list that programming in the appendix section. Now, if you see, this thesis doesn't have any appendix section. If we see here, there's no appendix sections. So if you have like coding or maybe for economics student survey or any questionnaire, you should add the appendix sections before reference. So make sure you use appendix and talk to your supervisor before adding the appendix sections. Yeah. And then the seventh point here, consider following using flowchart or visual diagrams, especially for engineering students or even for economics students. Sometimes you will see that you need to use diagrams like SWOT analysis or root cause analysis, things like that. And for engineering students, you need to maybe make research methodology diagrams. So for which you can basically use softwares like Visio, which looks like this. If you know, this is the software which is Visio. It can be used for making diagrams like this. So by flowchart or Visio diagram, I mean diagrams like this. So if you know this software, it's good, but otherwise you can also use chat GPT, and there are some GPTs like diagram, whimsical diagrams, flowchart. So you can use these tools. I think you already know how to use them. So just start a chat, upload what kind of flowchart you want. You give the as text, like you give the steps, step one, step two, step three, step four, like that, and then it will, based on that, it will prepare you the diagram, and then you can download and use that. But sometimes your professor might say you need to actually prepare a Visio diagram. So in that case, maybe it won't take more than 30 minutes to start learning Visios because there are a lot of templates you can use directly. And the eighth one is like removing background from your images or figures you are using to make them look nice. So for that you can, I think in another lecture also I showed this one using remove.bg. It's a quick demonstration. We can remove diagram for one. Let's see if you would use these pictures that you see, like they have a white background. These are white background. Now if you have text, you can't maybe use remove background, but let's look for appropriate picture. Okay, let's take this one. Um, we want a white background for this picture. So now within a minute, you see now it's a white background and you can use that in your thesis. But here you see there are text, but you can use this technique for things without text, and then get the picture. You can use arrows in PPTs to put the texts. And then we should also remember that the thesis shouldn't be too small. The thesis should be higher than 55 or 50, but not less than 50. If your thesis is less than 50 or 45, then your supervisor might not accept the thesis, as well as you maybe you'll get end up by C, which is very bad. If your thesis is also again like too long, maybe you'll get a higher percentage of plagiarism, which might end up not passing your thesis. So you should be in between maybe 50 to 65 or 70 like that. I think the more you write, the more you create the risk for plagiarism. Also, the less you write, you create a risk for you not passing the thesis, not getting acceptance of your thesis to your supervisor. So write it in between from 50 to 60, 65 like that. Also be prepared for plagiarism check, because when you are writing, copying from online, although there's no AI check still now, but the format check is there, plagiarism check is there. If you are copying from some other people's thesis in this university from last years, you will end up getting plagiarism is around 80%, which happened last semester with one student. Uh, so be prepared for plagiarism check, and when you are copying or pasting something from online, if it can be journal or book or anything, you should use reference in appropriate referencing styles and citation style. If you use maybe wrong format of referencing, it won't get detected and you will get higher percentage of plagiarism check. And there are a number of softwares available. Turnitin software you can use for plagiarism check, which is this one, but you will get a free check from our university. And if you fail the first check, you will have chance to maybe take second or maybe even third time. So this is the software you can use for plagiarism check. They give a report, and then you can use that report and get comments. Based on that, you can add the citations. But from the university also, I showed you in I think first lecture, you have seen how the online format check looks like and the plagiarism check. Let's have a look. Maybe in not this lecture, we'll be talking about plagiarism check in the next lecture. So I will show you how the report looks like for plagiarism check and how the report look like from Turnitin software, which is in English, but this one turns to be in Chinese, the one from university. So another very important thing is like it's actually appropriate for the defense basically, because while writing your thesis, you submit the thesis, you don't actually face the supervisors, not you supervisor, but other professors will be present in your defense. So while writing your thesis, also you can apply this thing, because if you are thinking that maybe your thesis no one will read it or no one will check it, you are writing whatever you want. um, it happened because last semester one student where maybe he's from computer science, he was using someone's code from GitHub, and then that GitHub he copied and then he pasted it without removing the author's name. Maybe thought like no one will check that, so you it's like a silly act, and then or maybe he was too clever that no one will check it. I can easily pass, but trust me, like this thing will be reviewed, and nowadays it's getting much harder. So don't be silly, don't be too clever. When you are copying something from some places, then always try to give the appropriate acknowledgement or references. And also one thing is like, let's say you are copying something from ChatGPT or for diagramming or anything you are taking help. You don't always need to maybe express everything. So it's good to hide some things, but always it's not good also to put everything in a way that you are hiding something that you should expose. So just keep in mind this point is very important. And number 11 is I also sent notices in the groups that you should submit 3 thesis feedback forms for September, October, and November. And it's just for like this year, 2024, and then next semester it will be different, like but every time it's like you have to submit 3 thesis feedback form for 3 months. And then also there are some other deliverables, thesis proposal, midterm report, and also you'll have to work on PPT. So I'm just saying this because maybe you're thinking you will work on thesis only, but there are a lot of things you'll have to work on. So you see, like before you graduate, you actually have to finish all these parts. Some of them will be provided by your supervisor, but you mainly have to prepare at least 7 or 8 for engineering students, 9 if you have design, You have to also put the design files, simulation files. So all these things need to be submitted before you graduate. So that's it for this lecture. And in the upcoming lectures, we'll be talking about how to work with the thesis feedback form, and how is the plagiarism check like, and how to work with your defense. I'll show you an appropriate good looking PPT so that you can work on your PPT as well, the deliverables, and how to write your thesis, and some research tools. So in the upcoming 5 lectures, we'll be talking about these things.